I'll do two. When it's
Yeah,
choosing,
but I'm saying something here that we
okay.
Is
should.
that me, Marcus?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Studio. Mics are up, please. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. You're tuned in and listening to Smooth 98.1, Smooth Breakfast with Valentine.
And Ayo Myra, say good morning, Lagos.
Hello, everyone. Hello to you, Bolaho. Hi.
Good morning, Ayop. Good morning, Valentine. And good morning, Lagos.
Good morning, Devo.
Good morning, Lagos. Cool.
Cool.
Where is the money? Border closure.
Still. And Adedimade, good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Lagos.
Welcome. All right, Lagos, join the conversation through this media.
You can send a message to our WhatsApp platform on 0809 0981. On Twitter, we're at Smooth981FM. Please use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. And then on YouTube, we're streaming live. So please go onto our YouTube channel, Smooth98.1 Lagos, and use the live chat option to send us your message.
Our first story. I'll start with our first story for Bolaho. This one is from this day newspaper. Despite the border closure, which Devo alluded to just now, smuggling booms at Nigeria-Niger border. This comes as no surprise to me, but surprising for many Nigerians because the natural expectation would be that the security agencies will be fighting this the smuggling issue and bringing it to a conclusive end. But it seems as though through this report or by this report, by eyewitness reports, that the opposite is the case. Your thoughts on this, please?
Well, I mean, to me, this isn't coming as a surprise to me. I've said it time and time again on this radio program that our borders are very porous and our borders are really huge borders. We have about 5,000 kilometers of land borders across Nigeria, and it's practically impossible to have it manned. You see, the problem that we have is that it's not the problem that we have at hand is not the issue with the official borders that we have. Yes, the official borders have been closed. Yes, there are no goods coming in and out of those official borders that we have across the country. But where we have the problems are those areas which are not manned and are not the official borders. Now, this article is reporting now, according to this day, they've done their investigations and they're reporting that along the Castina State and Niger Republic border, there's a particular town, which is Jibia, where they have noticed that there is massive smuggling going on. And they're smuggling items such as rice, clothes, and other items across that border. I mean, this is not an official border. This is just an area, a boundary between Niger and Nigeria. And we have several of all these boundaries. And the report has gone into detail as to how this smuggling is taking place. I mean, it reports that you would have the smugglers bringing these items close to the borders, very far away from the official borders. And what they would do is they would transport them or transload them onto J5 vehicles and other smaller vehicles and take them across the borders. And they're doing this in connivance with the security operatives.
So which makes me raise eyebrows, and many people who are listening to the show will probably wonder, okay, so if the officials of the security agencies are aware of these routes, how is it that they're not clamping down on them? From this report, it's clearly indicated by one of the guys who is complicit to this action, saying that some of them collect money.
Of course they do.
And they are paid to turn a blind eye or just look
Absolutely.
the other way.
It's nothing new. The security operatives are colluding with the smugglers in on this. So it's nothing new.
Where does this take us then?
But the situation is that, you see, that's what we've been talking about. Rather than the government addressing the issues that we have in our security operatives, they are chasing, they're chasing, I don't even know what to say. But I mean, they're really meant to be addressing the issues at hand internally. We're meant to be addressing the reasons why our security operatives are not working according to the way that they should be. I mean, they're talking about collusion between the police, the military, the customs. They're all involved in all this. It's a racket that is going on. And so we need to be paying these people more and finding out the reasons why these people are not doing their jobs diligently. And further investigation needs to be done. But unfortunately, we're just chasing shadows around saying that we're preventing smuggling. And the only people that are getting punished for this are the innocent Nigerians. Because what this article says is that the rice is getting more expensive.
Mhm. And unfortunately, as well, the officers involved decided it cuts across different security agencies, about 4 different arms. The National Security Advisor said that joint forces, not only custom officers, also includes the police, some parts of the DSS, and some other operatives. But they're asking for video evidence. They said that we need video evidence. If you find any of these people crossing the borders or smuggling products into the country.
What's stopping them from taking their own action and investigating the matter further?
As a question for everyone. Our next story, this one from the Punch newspaper. I'll come to you, Devo, for your analysis. Fresh World Bank loan. Labour attacks federal government over $100 billion withheld by the IOCs. International oil companies were given a mandate or a deadline to pay these bills. That hasn't happened yet. But the labor unions are raising eyebrows due to the unavailability of funds and the complaints so far in terms of funding by the federal government.
This is a position taken by Labour as well as Falana, whereby they've chided the federal government that instead of attempting to take loans, okay, because as recently the federal government agreed to the $3 billion loan from the World Bank to address electricity distribution and transmission issues, that they should pursue royalties from that would be owed Nigeria from the IOCs. Those are the international oil companies operating here. And what they mean by that is there is a royalty remittance that comes from the IOCs for working within Nigeria. And that as of the last time it was reviewed was 20 years ago, which was pegged at about $20 per barrel. And the oil price obviously has increased many years since then, and ever since that differential has not come to the country. So that amounts to over $100 billion, which Falana and Co are saying that, see, there's an opportunity here. I think if we have this, then that's a better position for us because that's our money. It's credit, it's not a debit in terms of a loan. Now, the NLC's position on various positions. One, they mentioned that they should go ahead with the debt recovery. Two, they should expand their tax net to the rich, that they're not paying enough. As we know, there is a serious issue of inequality of income within the country. Few people seem to have everything, and it's only logical that if you seem to have everything, then you should carry more of the burden than others. That's if even those rich are even paying. Thirdly, they mentioned about government cutting their size, and it's funny that these are coming right after they had just finished the minimum wage discussion. I thought these recommendations should have come up front. Now, the DMO in its release of figures did mention that Nigeria did raise the debts to 25.7 trillion naira, up 3.3 just within 1 year, okay? And a quarter of the 2020 budget is going to be spent on debt servicing, which is about 2.5 trillion, whereas recurrent expenditure is about 4.8, while let's call it a meager 2.14 is being spent on capital expenditure. So if you add 2.5 plus 4.8, you see the majority is going to expenditure, which is more or less sinking funds.
Yeah.
So in actual state, let me headline our budget. We are spending what we don't have. We are mortgages of us and our children. Now, what do you call it? I expect the NLC to push more on the fiscal plans of the country to show the government how it can make money, both at federal and at state level. This is where they can peg their own increases on. Because the truth is this: if you keep spending on salaries, if you keep spending on earnings, okay, what you're simply saying is that you're going to continue eating what you don't have, which puts Nigeria in a worse position than ever.
And that's a very solid point, Devo. Thank you for your analysis on that one.
Bemileke from Ipaja says, our government set up policies that only end up enriching some few people. Border closure is only making few Nigerians billionaires. Smugglers and some custom operatives are only becoming millionaires. And then Jeff says, guys, you have to understand that the government had a right to activate the review and they never did. So basically, by the law, the IOCs did not default. This is a long suit. And then we have from Dennis Festac still on the border closure. Please, as a member of the ECOWAS, is it right to close one's border for a long time, as in this case
It's not right.
of Nigeria?
And Dami says, I expected that this federal government will be less effective with the border closure in Niger and be super effective in the national borders in the southern parts of the country. Everything has sectional bias with this administration, is what Dami is alleging. But let's go to the next story.
Adedumad, I'll come to you for this one. The Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, has declared the former chairman of the Special Investigation Panel for the Recovery of Public Property, Okoye Obono Obla. We've spoken about this case, but now he's said to be wanted. He's said to have gone out of the country in August and he's not yet back.
Yeah, so I'm sure we all remember how this all started when the allegations against him with regards to WAEC certificate came up, and he denied that at a point, but even WAEC came out themselves to say that he actually forged the certificate. Other allegations, including living above his means, bribery, and also acting outside the guidelines that he was given. Now, the truth is this: at a certain point, he also tried to challenge the jurisdiction of the ICPC as a federal high court, but that did not work. And what he has done now just shows how some of our political office holders have this culture of what I'll call impunity. So now, this is a court, not a court per se, but it is a procedural, what I'll call a tribunal, can be called a tribunal and not a proper court, but it's still part of the justice administration system.
Yes.
Now, and this total neglect, this total refusal to come before it is actually very, very wrong and sets a bad example. I believe that this is something that presidency should be worried about, because they are setting an example that say, look, we're above the law, and the truth is nobody is above the law. Even the president is not above the law. Nobody, no citizen is above the law. So I believe that one, services of the Interpol should be used to bring him back to Nigeria.
So that's international police.
Yes, that's international police, because like the report says, he has left the country and he's been out of the country since August. Now
I have to ask you,
yeah.
how did he get out of the country? I mean, why were they? So, for instance, we have Ishoro's case. They're asking him to forfeit his passport. Well, not forfeit his passport,
Yeah.
but to have his passport in custody, so he's not even able to travel beyond Abuja.
Yeah.
Then we have someone like Okoye Obono Obla, who was able to travel out of the country through our airports, and
Yeah.
now he's not back. So how does that work?
Well, I don't know how it worked, but I want to believe that at that time that he traveled, one, he may not have submitted his passport,
Okay.
and two, he may not have been declared wanted. He wasn't even declared at that time. So yes, he would have had that freedom to travel where he wants to go to. But I believe that now, even the presidency should write to him or find a way to bring him back, because there has to be closure to this case. He cannot just go, because if he does that, then the next guy that is being is also just going to fly the coop, and we cannot allow that for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adedo. Stories from this day newspaper. Senate agencies secretly recruiting to cover up bloated personnel costs. Quite a huge allegation, leveled against agencies in the country. We know that ministries, department agencies over time have been alleged to have had workers for many or probably just support the anti-corruption drive of the present administration. Your thoughts on this story regarding this new allegation, fresh allegations that are stemming on the House?
Well, this is the Senate in its review capacity of the current budget. As you know, they have been reviewing the various positions that have been put forward by various MDAs, towards the national federal budget. Now, on two instances, the ICPC discovered about 9.2 billion from MDAs that resided with the central bank, and did make a connection with the current move by some of the MDAs in some quick personnel recruitments. And they did mention that in the review of their budgets, they realized that if they had paid everyone, there was still money left. And the MDAs were secretly trying to find a way to pad pad by inflating the cost of salaries and earnings just to make up for that 9.2 billion. So in discovering this, what they've mentioned is that the CBN, first of all, should get signatories from the MDAs before those MDAs get that money. Two, that the MDAs were asked to forfeit such funds into a floating fund, right? Now, on the second account, the chairman of the Senate Committee on the Power Sector, Gabriel Suswan, discovered about 600 million, which was meant to be voted to a disco. So they raised issues on that, saying that these discos have been privatized, that how come the ministries were still pushing money in the direction that the presidency was looking at creating state for Nigeria, but some of his lieutenants are bent on thwarting that objective. Now, this is a serious allegation. The response from the ministry was that that was from Mr. Louis Edozian, said that the 600 million in the 2020 budget was part of an agreement the ministry had with the company. Who's to blame here? I blame the Senate committee because it is their oversight duties. How come they didn't know about this? An agreement must have been written or documented somehow in paper. What kind of shoddy job is this? Are you waiting for information at the end of the day? Remember, when we say there are Senate committees for various industries and review, it does not mean that it's the senators that are doing the review. And this is where I always say they're fat cats that are not doing their job. They have a host of says senior special assistants, even they get contractual people who work with them to do these jobs.
But are they to blame alone? We know that some of these agencies, to mention, Bureau of Public Enterprises included, Budget Office of the Federation is there, Central Bank of Nigeria is part of it, Corporate Affairs Commission, the Debt Management Office. These are some of the agencies of the federal government. They have oversight functions over their own house. They have leaders. They have a chain of command.
Yes.
So how is it that they? I'm just saying, should you blame only the senators? Or
I blame the
fix their
senators
house?
because that's where I have power. The performance management of the federal government, that's whether they do their jobs or not. That's a matter that rests on the bulk of the head of service as well as the presidency, whether your civil servants are working. However, as representatives of the people, for my eye, I expect the senators to be doing their jobs to ensure that the ministries, the civil servants, are not getting away with all these loopholes that exist within government and stashing away our money.
Thank you.
All right,
Devo.
thank you, Devo. All right, let's move on to our next story here. This one is from the New Telegraph. Federal government to rake in 108 billion naira from national ID card renewals. Well, we've been having conversations around the NIN, and we've been talking about the fact that that not only would you have to register, we have issues surrounding that. Some people haven't received their card years after, but 5 years after now, you have to renew with some of and then you have to pay for service that hasn't even been rendered. It's funny and it's not funny, but please take us through this story.
Well, just reading this article from the New Telegraph speaks to me as a pure racket. I'm sorry to say. But the reason, I'll tell you why this is a racket. Just as you said, the federal government stands to rake in about 108 billion, according to the calculations that have been done by the New Telegraph. And as you said,
and so can you tell us how they arrived at this calculation?
Absolutely. Well, the way they've arrived at the calculation is that we would need to pay 3,000 naira to renew the cards every 5 years. Then, if you lose the card, you would also pay 5,000 naira for a replacement. Yep. And anytime you also need to do an upgrade, you have to pay 500 naira for each field of it. So say, for instance, you want to change your surname because you're just married, you would have to pay 500 naira for that. If you want to change your address, you have to pay another 500 naira. Each field you have to pay 500 naira for. And then the other thing that amazes me is that when we're talking about dates of birth, to change dates of birth, you'd have to pay 15,000 naira. Who changes the dates of birth then?
Maybe it was an error, an initial error on your part.
Well, if it was an initial error on your part, normally what would usually happen is that when these things are done and computed, they would give you a copy, ask you to check everything through to make sure that all the informations are accurate. And once you've done that and they printed it, then you should be fine.
And
so,
it's not likely that the error would come from them.
Exactly.
You need proof of
No, I think we should recognize that many Nigerians are not very forthright with data release. Therefore, the government has seen this as a revenue generating point. So if you must have, just like passport renewals, you know how many people are.
So in a sense, that field is actually punitive.
Yes,
if you lie
it
about
is
your
punitive.
age, if you
get to that point, you will pay for
ask
it.
A question. How can you lie about your age when you have to provide proof of your age?
Look,
this is the problem.
They don't provide proof. No, I have I mean, this is one of the problems that I also have with this registration. It's just data population, pretty much. You go to the office, you give them your details, you give them all the information. They don't ask for any proof to show
And it's
they're
not biometric. If it
It's
was
not
biometric, they would have cause to hold those who.
So what are you saying? Are you saying essentially that a foreigner can walk into any of those
Anybody
offices
can,
and just get an NIN?
literally.
Can be born in
Absolutely. You can be born
1920
at
today,
any
1930 tomorrow.
Absolutely. So
We live in a country how people change affidavits every day
every day.
on change of status. They do it with JAM, they do it with WIAC, they do it with practically everything that requires processing.
So, but to cut the story short, anyway, at the end of it, what it now says is that when they contacted the national IMC agent, and the agent said this to them, what is mostly important is the national identity number. The card isn't really relevant. And as such, they would only get the card when the funds are ready for printing it out. And so it raises a lot of questions. What are we exactly paying?
Thank you.
Another question here is how are we going to win the war against drug abuse? Because, I mean, beyond rhetorics, has this statement from the president from New Telegraph going to be implemented? Or so you have how much results have we achieved so far? Track records?
We've not done the story.
No. Go on, please. Go.
Okay. I thought you were reading the text.
No,
Okay. What the truth is, there's not much to this story. It seems that the president has just realized that there's an enormous drug issue within the country, having received a report of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Elimination of Drug Abuse. Okay, and he said that winning the war on drug abuse is one of the critical elements of the next level mandate. Okay, to ensure security and the well-being of people. Now, the truth is this: the chairman, that's Gabriel. Brigadier General Buba Marwa said that the committee is working with a wide spectrum of stakeholders, ministries, departments, agencies, NGOs, civil society organizations, faith-based professional bodies, international partners, and members of the drug user communities with parents, teachers, and caregivers. So the story is really, what's the word? It's really lacking in depth, okay? I want to hear directly what they intend to do if it's one of the key objectives of this, because the war on drugs is a matter of education, okay, a matter of the industry, what kind of industry, and because the drug abuse in this country differs from how it is abroad. When you talk about drug abuse in Nigeria, you're not even discussing narcotics. That's not the problem here, because we were able to tackle that to a large extent in the 80s with the military rule. However, poverty, which is mindset, has found a new domain whereby Nigerians overdose on common shelf drugs like tramadol, paracetamol, inhaling of codeine, what's it called? Glue, petroleum. These are things that you commonly see around, and this is where the problem lies. Why are people so high? Why is there huge drug abuse on all these things? Those are the issues they need to begin to tackle, because at the end of the day, if you don't face the facts about what your own country people are doing, you will continue being hit with this figure daily, and you won't understand why the unruly behavior, the irresponsibility found, especially among the youth, pervades.
Essentially, seeking to address the same, not necessarily the after effect. Escapist mentality. What are people escaping from?
Well, you should be talking about employment as well. So underemployment.
Val, excuse me, did Val just ask?
No, it's a rhetorical question.
I didn't ask. With the hardship, with the bad roads, the lack of money.
We have to also be, we also have to be objective. It's not only poor people that have a drug problem. Rich people have a drug
problem. No, I agree, but you're talking in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. The middle class, and especially those below class C and D, those who don't even have anything that the government is dashing 10,000. Okay, those people have no other cause in life than to just escape. And I'm answering your question.
Yes.
This is why. So they need to address the root of the problem, which is the social economic welfare. Then you will begin to have a reason to pull people out of the drug menace and abuse.
Excellent. Omololu here sends in this message. It says people their age for different reasons. So maybe to secure a job, which is the most popular one I know. It's usually done by civil servants, especially when age is on their side or age is not on their side and still have a lot of responsibilities to cater to.
Yes. All right, let's go on to our next one. Fisaya Shiombo, we won't arrest journalists over report on the Koyi prison, said the Marshal General. From Vanguard newspaper, I did the last week, I don't know if it was you or one of our analysts last week, we touched on this story. There was a report, and Fisaya Shiombo is a journalist who went into the prisons disguised as a felon, and then he exposed some things from the Koyi prisons. There were threats, and he said he had to go underground because he said they were going to arrest him. However, Nigerians reacted to that. Now we have a report saying that they're not going to arrest him. What do you have to say from? I'm glad it's a lawyer that's talking on this. What do you have to say?
Well, first of all, when I read the part one of his report, I was blown away. And I give him kudos, that self-sacrifice, 25 days in a police cell, and I'm going on to prisons. Wow, that was really
Sorry, he
great.
spent 2 weeks, not just 5 days.
Oh, more than.
Yes,
Yes.
Oh, great, great. Sorry,
Yes.
I got my facts wrong there. Okay, so he spent 2 weeks in the police cell. Now went on to Ikoyi prison. Now I was waiting for the part two, particularly because I wanted to see the role the courts were going to play in all this, and I was actually glad to see that no direct allegation of should I say, improper behavior was put against any member of the judiciary. But it showed clearly that along that has to do with the criminal justice system. There's so many agencies who come together to make that work and who have a lot of problems. For instance, the police and the correctional services. Now, following what he reported yesterday, there was this news story that broke out that he was going to be arrested by the government, and they were going to charge him under Section 29 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act, which provides that if you provide any means of communication device for a fellow inmate, then you've committed an offense. But technically, he did not provide any communication device for an inmate. He did not hand over any device to an inmate, according to what we read in the report. And I'm glad that people came out to to speak against his arrest, because even last night until this morning, it's trending on Twitter. The Keep Shoyinbo Safe thread is actually going on, and I would like the government to ensure that he's safe. But there's one thing I would like to say now: it is the correctional service that has come out and said they're not going to arrest him. I think it's very important for the police as well to come out and say they are not going to arrest him. I think it's very, very important.
Mate.
Our eyes are watching.
We are Ruby on YouTube sends in a message. Ruby Tennyson, thank you for tuning in. She said people are depressed. The root cause of the depression has to be addressed, and then comes rehabilitation for those who are lost in it. I sincerely do not have faith in the system to solve this. And Emeka says we have very poor and chronic blame mentality. A good percentage of us escape to live on welfare, to leech off others, making their countries great, regardless of whatever policy their government comes up with.
All right, we'll move on to our next story. Lagos traffic offenders sent to 100-day community service. Punch newspaper has this report for Lawan. Please, very short story.
Yes, well, it's a very interesting story and it's very short. It talks about the Lagos State Task Force and on Environment and Special Offences apprehending 37 traffic offenders for violating road traffic offences, and part of those offences are driving against traffic, driving on BRT corridor, plying the highway with motorcycles, and also endangering the lives of other road users. And so, therefore, they've been there was a court sentence, which is you have the mobile police, or sorry, the mobile court, and they've been sentenced to 100 days of community service, and also a fine between 15,000 to 20,000 naira fine has been imposed on them. Now, this is the interesting part. The Attorney General of the Lagos State and the Commissioner for Justice, which is Moyosiro Onigbanjo, did mention that Lagos State presently, the present administration has a zero tolerance for the violation of the laws. Yes, all well and good. I mean, we need to sanitize our roads. We know it's crazy out there, the way people drive. People really obey the traffic laws and drive appropriately. It's in the best interest of everybody to drive appropriately. Secondly, I would also like to add, and finally would like to add that while there's zero tolerance for road offenders, there should also be zero tolerance for bad roads. Please, Lagos State, fix our roads.
Which is why I also asked last week who she can sue, if she can sue the government for potholes. Emeka Onelum on Twitter said 100 days community service is too small a punishment for traffic offenders. People get killed from this. I almost got knocked down early this morning by an erratic driver driving against traffic without headlamps. That's scary. And then Z-Man.
Z-Man says, Kemi Adeosun left as a finance minister under the cloud of a forged NYSC document. She was in charge and was allowed to leave the country. Why do we expect something different in the Obia case? It goes beyond a forged certificate. Like we mentioned, there are also issues of corruption charges against him, Z-Man. And then Neka says to you, Adedumade, sorry to bust your bubble. The part 2 officers expose indicted the bench and the bar. It's a complete industry.
They're all on that table.
Well, I would like to see his interpretations of
They already
what
said
was
that
reported.
Judges are infallible, that they're human beings.
No, but they didn't say the judge did
We have to
anything.
go. We're done. Thank you very much, analysts. Adedumade is at Adedumade. Devo is at Devo Korea, and Bola is at Mr. G Quest. Join us next as we talk sports inside the locker room. Stay with us.
Hold on. Just
You know, it wasn't an accusatory statement. It wasn't. He wasn't trying to correct you. He was just telling you.